On the morning of September 14th, a scientist walked into her laboratory at 6:47 a.m. She signed in at the security desk. She brewed a cup of coffee. She unlocked her private research vault, a room that required both a keycard and a retinal scan to enter. And then, somewhere between that moment and 8:15 a.m., Dr. Elara Voss ceased to exist. Not her research. Not her files. Not even her coffee cup, still warm on the desk. Just her. Gone. No exit on the security logs. No camera footage of her leaving. No phone signal. No trail. As if the building itself had swallowed her whole. And what investigators found inside that research vault changed everything they thought they knew about why she disappeared. This is the missing scientist mystery. Part 1, The Woman Behind the Work. Before we talk about how Dr. Elara Voss disappeared, you need to understand who she was. Because the kind of person you are tells you a great deal about the kind of enemies you make. Elara was 41 years old. A biochemist with a specialization in neuropharmacology, the science of how chemical compounds interact with the human brain. She had spent 15 years at the Meridian Institute, one of the most quietly prestigious private research facilities in the world. The kind of place that doesn't advertise. The kind of place whose funding sources are deliberately difficult to trace. Her colleagues described her in the same way, almost every time. Brilliant. Private. Relentless. She didn't attend conferences. She didn't publish in public journals. She didn't give interviews. She worked. That was what Elara did. She worked 14-hour days, 6 days a week, on research she rarely discussed with anyone outside her immediate team. What she was working on, specifically, had been the subject of intense speculation inside the institute for years. What her colleagues did know. What they had pieced together from fragments of conversation, from supply requisitions, from the equipment she requested, was that Elara believed she was close to something. Something significant. Something that, in the words of her closest colleague Dr. James Okafor, would redefine how we think about human memory entirely. What exactly that meant, James couldn't say. Because Elara never told him. She never told anyone. And then, on a Tuesday morning in September, she was gone. Part 2, The morning everything stopped. The Institute's security director was the first to raise the alarm. His name was Karl Brandt, a former federal agent, methodical, experienced, not given to panic. At 9:30 a.m., Karl noticed something unusual in the access logs. Dr. Voss had entered the building at 6:47 a.m. She had entered her research vault at 7:02 a.m. And after that point, nothing. No keycard swipes. No door openings. No elevator calls. No movement through any of the 17 internal security checkpoints that tracked activity throughout the building. The Institute had one of the most comprehensive internal security systems Karl had ever worked with. Motion sensors. Weight-sensitive floor panels in restricted corridors. Camera coverage of every exit. Nothing showed Dr. Voss leaving. Which meant, according to every piece of data the building had, she was still inside. Karl sent a security officer to check the vault at 9:45 a.m. The vault was empty. Her coffee was on the desk, half finished. Her laptop was open, the screen still active. Her keycard was sitting beside the keyboard. Her coat was on the hook by the door. And in the center of the room, in a small metal tray beside her workstation, was something that stopped the security officer cold. Her retinal scan device, the biometric unit required to unlock the vault itself, had been wiped. Not broken. Not removed. Wiped. Cleared of all stored data. Every retinal profile in the system, including Elara's own, deleted. Someone had reset the device from the inside. And then that person had walked out of a room with no exit. Part 3, What was in the vault? When investigators took over the vault, they spent 3 days going through everything. What they found raised more questions than it answered. Elara's research, which she had kept almost completely offline, was stored across a series of encrypted hard drives. The encryption on 3 of them had been wiped, the same morning she disappeared. Whatever was on those drives was now unrecoverable. But the 4th drive, the one investigators believe she may not have had time to wipe, was still intact. What it contained has never been fully disclosed. What was disclosed, in fragments, through sources close to the investigation, was this. Elara had been working on a compound. A neurochemical formula, years in development. That she believed could do something that had never been done before. Not treat memory loss. Not improve cognitive function. Something more specific. More targeted. Something that, according to the fragmented notes on that 4th drive, she described as the ability to selectively suppress the retrieval of specific memories, not erase them, but make them permanently inaccessible. A chemical key that could lock away any memory. Any knowledge. Any secret. Without the subject even being aware it had happened. Now. Ask yourself who would want that. Ask yourself who would pay for that. And ask yourself what they would do to make sure no one else ever got it first. Part 4, 3 Theories. In the months that followed Elara's disappearance, investigators, journalists, and her own colleagues put forward 3 theories. The first was defection. That Elara had made contact with a foreign research body, or a private entity with the resources to match what the Meridian Institute was paying her, and had arranged her own disappearance. That she had wiped the drives herself. Reset the retinal scanner herself. And left through a route the building's security hadn't accounted for. This theory was supported by one specific piece of evidence. 3 weeks before she disappeared, Elara had liquidated a savings account worth just over $90,000. In cash. She told her bank she was making a property purchase. No property was ever found. The second theory was that she had been taken. That whoever wanted her research, or wanted to stop it, had gotten to her inside the institute. That the wiped drives and the reset retinal scanner were not Elara covering her own tracks, but someone else covering theirs. This theory was supported by something Carl Brandt found when he reviewed the external security footage, not the inside of the building, but the street outside. At 7:58 a.m., a black vehicle with no license plates had parked directly outside the institute's rear loading dock. It stayed for 11 minutes. At 8:09 a.m., it left. There was no delivery scheduled that morning. No staff member used the loading dock. And the camera covering the dock's interior door had experienced a 40-second gap in its recording at 8:04 a.m. 40 seconds. That's all it takes. The third theory was the one nobody wanted to say out loud. That Elara had discovered something in her research that frightened her. That the compound she had been developing had implications she hadn't foreseen. That she had wiped the drives not to protect her work, but to destroy it. And that wherever she had gone alone. Deliberately. To disappear before her research could be used. Part 5, The Only Lead. 7 months after Elara vanished, a letter arrived at the Meridian Institute. No return address. Postmarked from a city in Eastern Europe. It was addressed to Dr. James Okafor, Elara's closest colleague. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No signature. No name. Just 11 words. The work is destroyed. Do not look for what was lost. The handwriting was immediately sent for analysis. 3 independent analysts concluded it was consistent with Elara's handwriting. Not confirmed. Consistent. James read that letter in the hallway outside his office. And later, when journalists asked him what he thought it meant, whether he believed she was alive, whether he believed she had left by choice, he paused for a long time. And he said, "I think she found something she wasn't supposed to find. And I think she was smart enough to know what to do with it. He didn't elaborate. He never spoke publicly about Elara again. Part 6, where it stands today. Dar. Elara Voss has never been found. The investigation officially remains open. In practice, it has gone cold. The Meridian Institute declined all further comment following the discovery of the letter. Their public relations office issued a single statement describing her disappearance as a deeply personal matter and requesting that the media respect her privacy. The black vehicle with no license plates was never identified. The $90,000 in cash was never traced. The fourth hard drive, the one that survived, is in the possession of a federal agency whose name has never been formally attached to the case. What they found on it, if anything useful, has never been made public. What we are left with is this. A woman walks into a building. She brews a coffee. She unlocks a room with her eyes. And then she is gone. And somewhere out there, in a letter with no name, in a hard drive in a locked federal room, in the memory of a colleague who stopped talking, is the answer to why. We just don't have it yet. In conclusion, the missing scientist mystery is not solved. It may never be. But here at DLostChronicles, we believe every story deserves to be told, even the ones without endings. Especially those. Because somewhere between the questions and the silence is the truth. And we're going to keep looking for it. If you're new here, welcome to DLostChronicles. We tell the stories that got left behind. The places that vanished. The people who disappeared. The mysteries that history never finished explaining. Hit subscribe so you never miss one. And leave a comment below. Do you think Elara left by choice? Was she taken? Or did she destroy her own work on purpose? Tell us your theory. We read every single one. Until next time, stay curious. Stay watchful. And never stop asking questions.